next up on the show, the potential ban of TikTok in the U.S. is causing concern among some users and influencers here in Canada. U.S. President Joe Biden signed a bill into legislation last month that gives TikTok's parent company ByteDance two choices. They can either sell to an American company or face a U.S. ban. And so far, TikTok has said they will not sell despite the potential ban. Now there's some uncertainty about what this could mean for Canadian influencers. And Lauren Hauer is a Winnipeg booktokker, also known as a book influencer on TikTok. She's got 245,000 followers. And as I went to go pull her from the green room into the studio, she was, of course, reading a book. Hi there, Lauren.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, what I understand, this is your like full-time thing, right?
Oh yeah, this is my full-time job.
Yeah, and how long have you been doing this full-time for?
Since 2021. It hasn't been my full-time job since 2021, but in the last year, it became, my full-time job. This is what I do for a living.
Wow. So then how did you feel when you heard about this potential TikTok ban in the U.S.?
It's really scary just because there's so much uncertainty, and the banning might not happen for months and months, but because it's happening in the U.S., it's just so unclear how it's going to affect Canadian residents and people that make a living off of TikTok in Canada. It's scary.
Right. So let's say hypothetically there is this TikTok ban. So this would mean you would use all of your, American. Do you know how much percentage of your followers are American? Do you have access to that kind of data?
Oh yeah, you have access as a TikTok user to, if you make content on the app, you have access to all of the demographics that view your content, your entire viewership. You can see their ages, where they live. Yeah, so I think it's almost half of the people that keep up with the content that I make. There would be half of those that are U.S. residents. And in India, when TikTok was banned there, those accounts weren't deleted. They still exist and they're still up, but they're kind of like these ghost accounts that are inaccessible to the owners of the accounts, but the accounts are still up.
So what would this mean then for your bottom line? Because I actually understand Canadians aren't paid on TikTok the same way Americans are. So you can tell me about how that works?
Yeah, so in the United States, there's something called the TikTok Creator Fund. And so U.S. residents get paid per views on TikTok, whereas in Canada, we just don't have that at all. And so when you make a living on TikTok in Canada, it's all just from sponsored content that you make on the app. So a brand will reach out to us and then you make an ad for them, essentially. So it could be like a shower head company, or, I personally really enjoy when it's a book that I get to promote.
Right.
Those ones feel a little more, it's like a seamless integration.
So you've had to somehow plug, like, when I'm not reading a book, I like this shower head.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You have to get creative with it.
I'm sure.
But that's how Canadian residents who make a living off of TikTok are making a living. But in the US, it's very different. So because people get paid per views, really anybody can make a living off of TikTok. You don't have to have a manager finding sponsorships for you. It's kind of like the average person can make a living off of this app.
Wow. So you actually have to have a manager as one of your business expenses to help you get these sponsorships.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So then now I'm thinking, if this ban goes ahead and you now can't say that you tell advertisers now your views are cut in half or your followers are cut in half. What's that going to mean for trying to get these sponsors?
Well, it's really interesting because now all of these users or all of these creators in the United States, they will potentially disappear. And so that means that all of those sponsors that would be going to them could potentially start coming to Canadian creators, or they'll want to move away from TikTok entirely. Like, brands might not even want to advertise on TikTok because so much viewership is gone. And so that could mean really big things for Instagram and Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, which are kind of like the equivalent of TikToks just on other apps.
So you're kind of in this limbo period right now, right? Where you're kind of like, how much, so what are you doing to plan or if you do need to pivot at all if this ban happens?
I do make videos on YouTube, and then I make some content on Instagram, but all of these apps have very different cultures. So the things that perform well on TikTok don't necessarily perform well on Instagram. And then YouTube, it's like an entirely different game because videos are just so much longer on YouTube, aside from the shorts. But yeah, TikTok, it's such a unique place. And yeah, it's
And is that where most of your revenue comes from, is TikTok, compared to the other places, or no?
it's about 50-50 between TikTok and YouTube, and then Instagram is not a particularly profitable app. Just it's very kind of oversaturated. Like everyone can be an influencer on Instagram. It's just been around for a
Right.
really long time.
Right. And what are you hearing from fellow influencers on TikTok right now? Are they similarly worried, or are they even worried at all? Are they just like, this is just a thing, it'll pass by?
I think they're maybe a little. We're all kind of in denial at the moment just because everything is so up in the air. And there has been talk about potentially having to pivot to Instagram and just kind of leave TikTok behind if that becomes necessary. But I think everyone would be doing it kind of begrudgingly. And yeah, it would, I think ultimately people would just end up moving over to Instagram.
Is there ever it passed through your mind that you just might need to go find another job, or is it this is it for you?
I'm actually going to be taking some publishing courses in the fall and hopefully will have a more stable job in publishing in the future. I hope to not work in social media forever. It's a funny business.
Yeah, what is that like, in terms of what you put out there and versus, what it is to actually be an influencer? Is it like, what's the hustle like? What was it, is it 8-hour days, 9-10 hour days? What is that like?
It's kind of, you're sort of working all the time because you essentially have to sell your personality. Like you as a person are the brand. And so, yeah, you kind of just work 24 hours a day and constantly have to be thinking about new content that you're putting out. And I have to schedule time like 40 minutes to like an hour and a half a day where I sit and I just scroll through videos because you have to keep up with what's kind of trending. And I mean, that's a very easy part of the job, just passively scrolling social media, but it's a big part of it.
But tiring too, right? I mean, is there almost a little, like you said, you're kind of slowly kind of shifting away eventually to a more like classic job. Would it almost be a relief if you're forced to pivot like
Honestly, yes. Yeah, I would hope in the next 3 to 5 years, I would like to delete all social media and not have to do it at all. It's very emotionally exhausting. And you're kind of ultimately, at the end of the day, if you are a full-time influencer, your job is selling people product, and that becomes like, it's kind of soul-sucking.
And is that a similar sentiment among other influencers like yourself? Is everyone else like, okay, this has run its course, like let's move on to something else, or is this mostly just you?
I think a lot of influencers do feel this way, especially as they get into their like late 20s, early 30s. It's sort of an industry that you have to be young and spry to really thrive in, and then yeah, it's tiring.
Right. But you told me a little bit before we the mics turned on that you were still a little hopeful that this ban won't happen
Yes.
at all. What's kind of influencing that?
Yeah, I am very hopeful that it will not happen because I think that the community that you can create online is so invaluable. And even if I wasn't creating content on social media, I guess I shouldn't say that I would just delete all of the apps, but I would definitely take a step back and not be as present on those platforms because I would still love to consume all the media that other book creators make. And that's ultimately why I got into this job, because I just liked watching book content online.
Right. How much time do you spend scrolling versus reading?
Oh my God. I don't even want to think about that. Probably, I don't know. Oh, that's so awful to think about.
So maybe if this ban does come and you're forced to pivot, you'll actually maybe have more time to read, ironically.
I hope so. Yeah, that actually could be good for me.
Well, Lauren, thanks so much for joining us this morning and kind of giving us some insight into how things work behind the scenes and the business of being an TikTok influencer. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
That's Lauren Hauer, a local book talker for now. You can catch her you can follow her on TikTok at Big Book Lady if you want to see her there.